There we are. What's happening, mediocre people of YouTube? Let's see how that's gonna be. It should be alright. Sorry for the... Well, I got a guitar in front of it this time, so it's no crotch shot. I was gonna say sorry for the crotch shot. Or it could be... Or it could be... You never want two guitar players to be playing the same chords. Or playing the same thing. So we were sitting in a live stream today, watching a live stream today, and we were talking about, or I was talking about, I had brought up effects loops, and I had asked the guy hosting the live stream, I said, hey, what's your favorite design in effects loops? And he gave me a really detailed answer, which actually made me think, got me to thinking about, you know, what I really want and what I'm really trying to achieve. So that was cool. So I built that Chupacabra 100. Fucking don't want to play any other amp at this point in my life. But it also has a very passive effects loop. Meaning it has an effects loop and it works fine. I think it's going off the treble wiper and then into the phase inverter from there, which is typical. The thing about it is it's not, you don't have a lot of control over it. So I posted on my page earlier, or on the community tab, whatever you call it. I'm building, in fact I was just going to put my dropping resistor in. I built a Soraya Tones C-Later, right? It's designed from it's off the Dumbles, I believe. And I think this is going to work out very well. Gives you quite a bit of control of the effects. So it seems that a lot of people really like it. So, and again, I cannot say enough good things about, if you're thinking about getting an amplifier, building an amplifier from a kit, please consider Soraya Tone. I can't say enough good things about Nick. Nick from Soraya Tone is available to me anytime I need him, and has been available to me from the beginning, even before I purchased anything from him. So think about that if you're thinking about a kit. So in this effects loop I'm talking about, I was just picking the brain of a very good amp builder and amp tech about what effects loop he likes. And he mentioned a few different ones, or one specific one. I said, what's your favorite? And he did tell me. But he also, talked about, what you're trying to achieve as well. And, which is a good question. You have to excuse me. I'm getting I don't know if I'm sick. I know that much. And not the usual loony sickness. I've got some kind of upper respiratory thing happening. So he kind of went on to say, hey, kind of really, you got to kind of think about what you're trying to achieve, which was, it kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I've got myself so wrapped up into this effects loop and thinking about it, and I like the idea of putting my modulation into the loop. Okay, it just sounds like a really good idea, meaning my delay and chorus, basically. And you have to understand, I've never used like a big giant pedal board my entire life, and I actually, here's the other part, is I've never used an effects loop. You know, I used exclusively the Carbon X100B for all these many years. It has an effects loop, but I never used it. On my JCM 800s, the older one, I'm not sure whether that has an effects loop or not. I think the other one that I have two of them, and one of them I think has an effects loop and the other one does not. And I believe it'd be the older one that does not have the effects loop. Anyway, regardless of which amp I used ideally in a live rig or recording, I would use two Carbon X100Bs. I had either a Super Overdrive Distortion Plus, a delay, and then my chorus pedal, which goes out into both amplifiers, so it makes it a stereo chorus. So that being said, it always went into the front of the amp. Like I said, my Carbons, they had effects loops, I just never used them. And I got my sound from that. And it's been fine. It's been totally fine. Like I said, I really like the idea of putting the delay and the chorus into the loop, meaning after the gain stages of the 12AX7s is basically landing. When you're doing an effects loop, you've got your gain stages, your phase inverter, and basically right after that phase inverter, right before the power tubes, is the effects loop. Okay, and that's basically, it sits in between there, so that you're not distorting all of that stuff. Now, a lot of people talk about, putting their distortions and overdrives into the effects loop, which I've never understood, because and people talk about how, because you want that power amp distortion sound, you want to overdrive those power tubes. That's not what you've ever been looking to do. To those of you who think that's the way it is, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's not. You were looking to overdrive those preamp tubes. That's why you always hit the front of the amp, no matter what you were doing. I always knew that much. Even though I didn't use the effects loop, I knew that much, that your distortion, your overdrive, your whatever, that always hits the front of the amp, because you're trying to push that preamp section. You're not trying to push your power amp section. You want to let your power amp section be. And that's why I like the idea of putting the modulation into the effects loop, because then it won't be all distorted or anything. But on the other hand, it's like, well, it's been working fine. But sometimes you kind of get blinded by things, and building this amplifier, I had initially, and I have to try it, because I haven't even tried just using my regular pedal board in front of it, which with this amplifier, I don't even need a pedal. There's really nothing a pedal can do for me with that amplifier. It's not going to make it any better. That amplifier on its own has my sound. Okay, I don't need to overdrive it. I don't need to just push distortion into it. Actually, that's really just ruining it, honestly. It sounds so good the way it is. You just dial in your tone, and now I can back it off with my guitar with the volume, and I can clean it up still, but for the most part, it's just dialed in. I know people say, well, don't you want to turn it off in case you play any clean stuff? I don't really play any clean stuff. I'd like to start playing some more clean stuff, but even so, like I said, I can dial it back with my volume on my guitar and kind of clean it up. It's still going to be rough. Even my clean channels have always been pretty rough. Like with the Carvins and the JCM 800, I've always run, like I said, either a Super Overdrive or Distortion Plus into the front end of it. And, that's really the only way to get that sound, or my sound, is to push the preamp section a lot harder than you can with the controls on those amplifiers. especially the JCM 800. The Carvin is a little more, you can dial in the Carvins more than you can the JCM 800s, and perhaps that's because of the extra 5-band EQ on it. I don't really know. All I know is, when I first got a JCM 800, I was disappointed. Not disappointed. I was over the moon because I actually got a JCM 800, but at the same time, I didn't know that I wasn't going to get that sound. I was still going to have to push it. So in the meantime, the Carvin, did everything I wanted it to do. So got way off track here. So I am still going to install a buffered effects loop into my Chupacabra 100, but just because I want the option of being able to have more control over the effects loop if I decide to use it. But now I'm kind of like trying to decide if I'm gonna use it. I don't even know. It's kind of like why, right? It's really kind of one of those things. It's like I've been doing it all these years right into the amplifier. Why would I start now, right? Changing things up. Well, it's just because I do like the idea of putting the modulation in the loop and having that chorus or delay, which I rarely use a delay either. For a long time I even had wah and roto vibes hooked up, which I really don't use those. I do like the wah pedal. I do like screwing around with that, but I don't know. I just never really used much. I used to see other guys with all kinds of stuff. I used the Metal Zone for a while. Still love the Metal Zone. I know it's one of the most hated pedals out there. I love the Metal Zone. The Metal Zone will push an amplifier very hard in front, and you need to be careful about that because it'll just push it way too hard. You'll be feeding back. And I've seen videos on YouTube of guys talking about putting that into the effects loop, which is interesting because you've heard about putting rack gear into the effects loop and stuff like that. So yeah. And I was all for rack stuff back in the day. I didn't really own anything. I had an Elysius Quadriverb, which was great. I'd love to have another one of those. That is the coolest. It's got all different types of reverb and delays and echoes and all kinds of stuff on that thing. And I used to have one because at a friend's house, all he had was a PA system. So I would go over there and plug into his PA system with my guitar, and that's where I used the Metal Zone for that because it sounded really good because obviously his PA rig, he had a hell of a PA rig, but it was just meant for very clean, and it was all solid state, so I could throw that Metal Zone into there, and man, that thing sounded fantastic. And that's where I met the Elysius Quadriverb and just love it still to this day. I'm gonna have to look and see. I might try to get another one of those. Other than that, working on some tunes with a couple of people. We're talking about maybe doing some cover songs, but now it kind of looks like we're going in an original songs direction, which is fine by me. I never really liked doing covers. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing the install, getting this effects loop done in the Chupacabra. Like I said, I've really spent some time lately with this amplifier, and good God, man, it's like, where have you been all my life? I gotta build a cabinet for it too. Peace out.